All right. If all is well, we should be live now. I'm just looking at my dashboard. Yeah, we got some 8 minutes before we actually start. Really hard to get that one down in the live streams. Anyway, welcome everybody. Hey Daniel, how you doing?
Hey, Pascal. Pretty good, and you, man?
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome.
So today we have our 26th episode already of the Threat Researchers Live. We're gonna cover events that we deem important in the month of October. And I can tell you, again, quite a packed episode. As every time, we try to keep it short, but we never seem to get there. So
It goes
there's
against us. We keep saying the landscape keeps escalating, and as a
yeah.
result, we keep getting more slide decks because of it.
Maybe next time we should go for a much longer episode.
We're gonna go for the 3-hour matinee special.
Yeah,
Now we'll have
yeah.
a break in the middle.
Yeah, it's morning for you. For me, it's closer to afternoon. Yeah, almost evening.
We'll split it.
Yeah. The usual disclaimer, just have it there so YouTube can register it. Good. So what we're gonna talk about today? A lot of Killnet, and as per usual, we start with all the drama that comes from Russia. So Killnet versus the US, Bulgaria, how they cooperate with Solaris Market, Xaknet, another pro-Russian activists, talking about several other operations from Ukraine, and then we will turn into some global news that was going on. BlueBleed will come by, Text4Shell for the people who have been following the news in the last couple of weeks. So expect to hear us give the highlights on those different topics, as well as our opinion, uh, which which comes with a disclaimer that you saw just there. Let you
We're gonna
start
start
in,
with
yeah, with a cool meme.
the meme of the month here comes once again from Rob Joyce at the NSA. Fire content, buddy. But I like this meme. DDoSes are very unsophisticated. We hear it all the time in this industry about how low level it is and how unsophisticated it is. But DDoS attacks can hurt. They can cause massive outages. They can cause a lot of issues as far as perception in certain systems and if they're vulnerable. So they're nothing to write off so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there has been a lot of discussion about this since the attacks on the US airports. More on this later. But yeah, it was quite controversial. Some people said they wouldn't leave sleep for a DDoS attack. So yeah, there you
That's
have it.
until a 7-day persistent multi-vector attack hits you and you don't have a
Yeah,
plan.
exactly. And they shouldn't be a problem. I do agree with that, however, they shouldn't be a problem. If you have adequate protection, there's no reason that these attacks should be successful. So for the people who's joining us for the first time, you can reach us in many different ways. So you can reach us on this channel, on the Radware YouTube channel. There's a tiny URL on top that brings you straight to our playlists. All the episodes are nicely joined together in the playlist. I also tried to put again the different chapters in the video, so the videos are always quite long, but giving you chapters you can jump around and only listen to the topics that are appropriate to you, because we're covering a wide gamut of topics across the threat landscape. So I can imagine that not everybody will be interested in everything that we have to say. You can follow us on Twitter, where we post the latest research that we're conducting. For more interactive communication, join us on Telegram. For the people who don't know what Telegram is, that's like a WhatsApp or Signal. Um, so yeah, look it up. Telegram is a cool tool, encrypted both ways, and used by many of the hacktivists. So that's why we're also available there. Through the Radware chat, you can chat with us directly. There's also the newsletter that we are providing every month, and that's basically a summary of what we discussed during the Threat Researchers Live. So if you want to read up on everything that we talked about, but more summarized and with all the source links, you can find them there. The links to all the topics and slides and the sources that we used and referenced during the Threat Researchers Live will be in the comments down below on the YouTube channel, or better, will be a link to a pastebin that goes to Radware Research, and there we keep a list of all the URLs and all the sources that you need. So if you want more information on a specific topic that we were talking about, or read more in depth, you can always go to that pastebin, find the URL for that topic, and go read the original sources for it. So with that said,
Starting with fun stuff here, aren't we?
yeah, starting with DDoS, who doesn't hurt.
We start with DDoS and we will end with DDoS. So the this month we ended up issuing an alert via Radware about Killnet targeting U.S. civilian network infrastructure. And at the beginning of the month, the Killnet group ended up launching attacks against state websites. So specifically here in Colorado, where I live, our state website, colorado.gov, was unavailable. And this was because of a DDoS attack launched by the group. There was no impacts to the internal system, so like you could still go and get your resources. The Colorado website actually was redirected to another website during the outage, but these websites were mainly just informational websites. The attack is really kind of generated to undermine the confidence in systems, especially going into the elections. These sites do not have any main function, so their outage really doesn't have an impact on the users. And a lot of people start talking about this in the media. Pascal kind of talked about this a second ago, hinted at it, that generally people don't want to cover Killnet attacks and DDoS attacks because part of the objective is to gain media attention. But part of our job is covering these things. We have to talk about them because these are very important events that are going on. I mean, this group is somewhat of a formidable group, and people won't say that they're advanced. I wouldn't say that they're low skill. They're pretty organized, and they have some severe impacts. Looking forward to this campaign, they also launched a series of attacks against U.S. airports. So this was done by Killnet, and also was joined by no name 057016, very weird name, and also Anonymous Russia. Now, Pascal, I believe that there was a little bit of an argument between Killnet and No Name during this whole thing, right? There was an argument about how they're not exactly associated with each other.
Yeah, that was my hot photo here. Oh, we have somebody in the chat. Yeah, okay, cool. So the bots are joining us. We have an army of bots in the chat. People, don't click that chat message.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, at least we have somebody listening. Russian bots.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
We're going to talk a lot about them.
So what I was saying is, yeah, so Killnet and No Name 057. So shortly after the attacks on the US airports, we put out an alert because we saw that No Name created a new project called Didosia. And in that project, they are crowdsourcing people and asking people to install a bot. Very much like the IT army of Ukraine automated botnet and also the Disbalancer company did with their agent. You install it and they will take control of, or they better will send you a daily updated feed of targets, and your agent will start attacking. So basically building a crowdsourced botnet for agents running on different systems by members of the Telegram group Didosia. But that article was picked up by hacker.ru in Russia, and that was Maria who reported on it. And she wrote that, yeah, and also in other alerts, we said that Killnet and Noname were seen attacking at the same time the US airport. So she wrote that they worked together, Killnet and Noname 057, which is kind of lost in translation, I think, more than anything. But No Name picked up on that, and No Name posted a message saying that, hey, we are in no way associated with Killnet. We don't do what Killnet tells us to do. And yeah, that's basically also what we see. We do agree that those groups have common objectives. You will see them sharing targets. So when a target comes on Killnet, like 7 minutes later, it was available on the No Name channel, and then made its way to the Didosia channel. Anonymous Russia also picked it up, but that doesn't mean that they were orchestrating or synchronizing their attacks. They just have a common objective. They picked up the same lists, and they know that if they can hit together, the impact will be bigger. So even if they were, or it seemed like they were working together, they are still very much independent, and that's what No Name wanted to stress. They have no association with Killnet.
Which is always fun to see that drama, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when you see, like, I wouldn't say misinformation or misreporting, but when you just see dots being connected and the people that are having their dots connected are not happy about it, and the drama that ensues in the underground. This was a great example of that.
Yeah, but it's not.
So
Yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead. Oh no, I was going to say this wasn't also the first time the group has done this.
Yeah,
Actually, the United States government and CISA had issued an alert at the beginning of the year about these groups targeting informational websites at airports. So once
yeah.
again, this is like
Bradley
the
Airport,
government
it
web.
was right.
What's that?
Bradley Airport was
Brad,
also.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, yep. It was Bradley Airport by the group Hacksnet, and also
Mm-hmm.
Killnet as well was involved in that. Which we'll get in a little bit more about Hacksnet and who they are. At the moment, I'll just say Killnet, No Name, and Anonymous Russia officially do not have any ties to the Russian government. But
Not as far
the
as we
jury's.
know. Yeah.
I was gonna say the jury's still out on that one. But
But it
yeah,
doesn't
so
look like it.
the groups have been known to attack airport websites. Once again, these are informational websites. They're just there to give out information. There's nothing as far as impact to scheduled flights or anything like that. Once again, it's designed to undermine the confidence
Yeah.
in the U.S. Internet system, as well as also the airport systems as well. But this was part of the campaign that we alerted about early in the month, and then continued on
Yeah.
through the rest of the month after this attack. They went on to target the financial sector.
Yeah. So before we go to the next slide and next topic, I want you to have a good look at the screenshot where you have the message of "We are Killnet," and let me make it a little bit bigger. So you see on the right side, "We are Killnet," and you see what is published is a list of URLs of websites that are targets for the attacks. And under that, you will typically, so on the left image, you see that you have a check host link. And check host is a website that a lot of those hacktivists are using to provide proof that they actually downed a website. So check host will check from different locations in the world, do a check on the layer 7 of the web server and check if he's online or offline, and then we'll report online or offline. Those reports can be saved as persistent reports, and then you get a unique link. That's what those unique links are. So if you click on one of those links, you will see a report for the website that was being affected, and that website will also see if it was available in a certain country or not. You also see the exact time when it was not available. So typically, when a hacktivist is claiming a campaign, he will join a list of targets, and he will also give the different check hosts that you can actually see, yes, it was apparently down. Because yeah, some of those attacks like last for maybe 10 minutes, not much longer, I believe.
Yep.
So they just want to provide proof that it happened and that they were behind it because they have that link, that permalink to the report, which will be important. So morning after, um, as you said, Daniel, they went after finance. So Killnet was claiming that it took down the whole network infrastructure of JP Morgan Chase. So that was just a couple of hours after the mediatized attacks on the US airports. So important to note that the attacks on the airports, while not that impacting, caused some controversy, and we talked about it in the beginning. Some people saying, "Hey, we should not give that much attention to DDoS attacks," and in some way, yes, in other ways, no. I would agree to a certain level because we gave them that attention, so they came out of what they believe a relatively successful campaign bringing down U.S. airports. Although it's only the public website, so operations of airports were not impacted. But the morning after, they just put up a message claiming that they took down JP Morgan Chase. Within a couple of hours, you saw that message going around on Twitter, and then you saw the articles come up. Pro-Russian Killnet hacker hang targets JP Morgan, blocking JP Morgan infrastructure. Um, then there's some hacked by Russian group Killnet. And then there is, of course, A little bit later, we saw the messages. JP Morgan says it's not seeing any impact. So what happened? Oh, I think that I'm making a lot of noise. No, only for myself.
Just a little bit.
So that is the message, and I put the video in there so you can also see it scroll by. So they created a video that looks very believable, yeah. So they have their logo, they have Anonymous Russia in there, and then a couple of screenshots of the different JP Morgan websites. They also posted under that a message that they blocked the entire network infrastructure of JP Morgan Chase with all the different services that are provided by JP Morgan. I think that's probably a copy paste of a list somewhere on JP Morgan's website. But and then translated to Russian. So that is what the message looked like. Now go back to the other messages. You see the message here with the check link and the actual URL. That doesn't look anything like a checklist and URLs and check hosts that you can verify that actually something happened. So in my mind, this was more of a psychological operation. Killnet is not big enough to take on a target the size of JP Morgan Chase, at least not taking down their whole network infrastructure. However, they came out a relatively successful and widely mediatized campaign the day before, so it's only like a good moment to grasp and put a message out, hey, we impacted JP Morgan Chase, even though that nothing happened. But still, the media is running with it, and JP Morgan is getting questions, and JP Morgan is put on their back foot. So they are causing doubt and uncertainty. Now, going back a little bit earlier in August, remember the Lockheed Martin attacks, where they claimed that they breached Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin was searching. Even the stocks of Lockheed Martin were impacted. I don't know if that was the single reason that their stock was impacted at that moment, but at the same time, yeah, they might have had some impact on their stock because Killnet said that they breached their servers and they stole information. And they even had proof, so they showed proof of that information. But yeah, everybody knows that there's enough leaks out there that you can buy. You can leverage um, LinkedIn and other social media outlets to scrape information and tie them back to people who work with Lockheed Martin, and then create like a believable file where you submit so said a sample of. So nobody in the security community actually believed that the hack was true, but Lockheed Martin had to defend themselves for that case. So those are two operations that fall in the category where we don't think that Killnet is sophisticated enough to bring them down or to breach them, but they leveraged other easier targets the day before or a couple of days before, and also went to the news and to the media to say that they would do that, and yeah, that's the result of it. So
You know, it reminds me of the old days of Anonymous with the exaggerated claims that, you know, as you said, if there's not a check host and there's not a link to prove the outage happened or that doesn't get massive coverage, it doesn't really happen. And to watch Killnet have two successful campaigns against US infrastructure and then try to fake this one, pretty interesting.
yeah.
Definitely a weird playbook they're running with. But the group is not bored, right? They have several other targets and several other campaigns going on in the
Oh
same
yeah.
month. It's,
Yeah,
it's,
they had.
it's pretty unbelievable. The group Killnet also target the Bulgarian government, and this was mainly because they believed the Bulgarian government provided Ukraine with weapons. So in return, they launched a bunch of DDoS attacks against government agencies, financial institutions, transportation agencies, and also the chemical industry. And once again, the Killnet's goal was likely to gain media attention and to undermine confidence in the state institution. Um, these websites that they're targeting are not critical infrastructure. They're just civilian infrastructure, right? So they're informative. They're out there to put out information. The website goes down. It has more of an impact on confidence versus system integrity. But the Bulgarian authorities also claim they know who Killmill, the leader of Killnet, is, and they have requested his extradition from Russia, which will be pretty strange to see how that plays out. I doubt Russia would extradite Kill Milk in the event that this person that they claim is Kill Milk is Kill
Well,
Milk.
some Bulgarian expert also claimed that Killnet has ties to the Russian GRU. So
Which is still to be determined, right? At the moment, there's no
yeah,
evidence to prove it.
there's no evidence to prove that. There's no evidence to prove the other way as well. But Killnet still is very much independently funded. So that might be just a face.
And speaking of funding,
Yeah, exactly. Killnet and Solaris. So I actually went after the message, but during the interview that Killmilk, so the leader of Killnet, was given on Sunday evening, the night before the attacks on US airports, he also mentioned that he had a very good support from the group behind Solaris. Solaris Market is one of the bigger Russian-speaking underground markets, not a forum, but a market. And they came to rise after Hydra was shut down in March of 2022. So the authorities shut down Hydra, and then there were two competing markets in the darknet underground in the drug ecosystem. That was Rutor on one side and Solaris on the other. Earlier this year, Killnet has been attacking with DDoS attacks Rutor, and Rutor was complaining about that and suffering from that. So now coming forward with Solaris and talking so openly about Solaris and saying help came from there where we did not expect, black market government Solaris that's supporting the activities of Killnet. So most probably, and that's also an article that is linked in the references, most probably Killnet is getting paid for DDoS for hire services by Solaris to suppress their biggest competitor on the underground, which is Rutor.
now it should be noted, I just want to jump in there real quick, that
Mhm.
Killnet was running a DDoS for hire service
Yeah,
prior to the war. So this makes
absolutely.
sense that they're falling into the DDoS for profit category.
Yeah, that was exactly what he was trying to do on the underground before the war actually started. It's only after the war started that he converted himself to pro-Russian hacktivist and then mediatized or tried to catch as much as possible the media on his own name. So
Are
that's
you saying Kill Milk is a capitalist? I'm gonna get DDoS for that joke.
maybe he's running for president, next president of Russia. Who knows?
Yeah, who
Uh,
knows? So over to Hacksnet, right? So this is something I want to talk about a little bit. Hacksnet targeted the Israeli parliament in a pretty good size attack. As we mentioned earlier, there was a link from Checkhost to go along to prove that there was an outage. But as we were mentioned before with No Name and Killnet and Anonymous Russia, these are groups that do not have direct links to the Russian government. But we covered this last month, and this I just want to reiterate this. Mandiant has assessed with moderate confidence that the group behind Hacksnet is working in coordination with Russia's main intelligence directorate, the GRU. So this is just something to note, right? So this group is launching DDoS attacks in response to the Russian-Ukrainian war. And in this situation, they targeted the Israeli government. They targeted the Israeli government because Hacksnet believes that the Israeli government is providing Ukraine with intelligence. Might be true, might be false, but yes, it was intelligence necessary to combat drones. And as you know, or if you follow the Russian war over in Ukraine, drones have been very pivotal and key in this conflict.
yeah, from both sides.
Yeah. So on to the other side, Ukraine's IT army has published a very interesting little piece here. Now, I didn't catch it. Stefano, a researcher over at CSS ETH, mentioned this on Twitter, and it's pretty amazing. The IT army admitted that they ran an operation with Ukraine's Special Operation Forces, the SSO. They targeted Russian tax files and they leaked them out through their Telegram channel. And this is pretty interesting because up until now, the IT army has been mainly a group of volunteer DDoSers loosely run by the Ukrainian government, with all the shared common goal of attacking Russia, preventing propaganda, stopping the war machine. Now we're starting to see little signs that the IT army is actually working in cooperation with the Ukrainian government. So this is an escalation in the landscape. At the beginning half of this war, you saw hacktivists and non-affiliated groups launching attacks, and now we're starting to see those non-affiliated groups have affiliations. So going into the second half of the year into the new year, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how many of these groups that we currently see on the threat landscape are actually government aligned. I think there's probably like over 24 hacktivist groups out there on both sides. And just slowly we're starting to see attribution of who's working for who.
Yeah. To add to that, IT Army, if you go back to the beginnings, is government sanctions. It's Mikhaili, the VP, the vice president of Ukraine, who actually started or created even the Telegram channel. And then also in the beginning, they used a lot Twitter to actually motivate organizations to take their business away from Russia to impact Russian civilians. So like Samsung and Coca-Cola, businesses that were not immediately affected by sanctions that were put on Russia by the Western authorities, or better by the US and by Europe, but by publishing letters and by writing open letters and publishing them on Twitter and leveraging Twitter as a way to put emotional pressure on those companies, he managed to get a lot of companies that were not falling under those sanctions to take away all their business and all affiliation from Russia and leave Russia pretty much on its own. So without McDonald's, not saying that Russians will miss it, but no McDonald's, no Pizza Hut, no Coca-Cola, no iPhone, no app stores, things like that.
I'd miss it. You know me, I'm a McDonald's fan. I'd definitely miss it.
Well, did we hurt them by taking away McDonald's because now they're all athletes, you
Oh, I was
know?
gonna say I've seen pictures of the McDonald's that we've like left there, and they've all converted them into new restaurants. And
Yeah, well, it's now a Russian McDonald's. They just took the recipes and whatever was left in the stock and started running them themselves. So it's like, yeah,
you know,
warlord.
just as a curious cat, like eventually at some point in time, I'm gonna have to go to like the knockoff McDonald's in Moscow. Like it's just gonna have to happen.
Copycat.
So in other news, RomCom malware was seen targeting Ukraine. It was sent via phishing emails that were allegedly on behalf of the press service, of the general staff, of the armed force of Ukraine. That's a mouthful. I'm sorry. The phishing emails that came in linked to third-party resources, which had a download as a lure. There was a hidden link that actually dropped a PDF file, a PDF reader. So the lure was a message that basically said, "Hey, you need this PDF reader to open this file." People would download it and then immediately deploy the ROSCOM backdoor. This was also written about by Unit 42, which is Palo Alto Network, and both of them have attributed the use of RomCom backdoor to Tropical Scorpius, aka UNC 2596. And some of these threat group names are out there. But this threat group. So let me explain this a little bit. I don't think we've gotten into this. So there's multiple names for the same group out there in the threat landscape, and that's really because of what each organization sees specifically. A lot of people say that one name doesn't apply to the other because of tactics, techniques, and procedures used in each campaign. But that's why you actually see like two names representing the same group, is because they saw two different campaigns from the same group. But this group is also known for distributing Cuba ransomware, which is a very popular ransomware group at the moment, known for locking up schools and all kinds of other organizations across the world.
Wasn't that also Montenegro, or what?
Yep.
What was the
Yep.
country?
There was several attacks actually in Latin America that were responsible for Cuba. Yep. Or came from the Cuba ransomware group, not Cuba the country.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah. When you see Cuba, you think immediately about Latin America, but who says that those people are operating from Latin America?
Exactly.
Some of the actions that they did was actually supporting Russian narratives.
Yep. So going into the more funnier side of the Russian-Ukrainian war, you know, for the last few months, I've been trying to find these little fun little hacks, right? You know me, I'm a master of the lulz and love the lulz. So here's a lesson in wartime looting. Yeah, I never thought I'd make a slide with that title, but here we are. So
Yeah,
Russians
nice
stole
picture
60.
as well.
Yes, yeah, straight
The
from the
best you
stolen
could
camera
find.
too. Well, there's a couple other videos, like screenshots I could have taken, but probably would not have been safe for work or YouTube. So Russians stole these cameras from occupied Ukraine, and they took them back to their country. Now, Lyman is the city in Ukraine they stole from. How do you pronounce that? Pascal.
Donetsk.
But I don't see the K. So they stole these cameras from Lehman, Ukraine, and they installed them in their homes in
Ah,
Bur-
Buryatia. Okay, yeah.
Buryatia, Russia. The Russians that stole these cameras or they purchased the stolen cameras did not reset the passwords, just deployed them into their homes. And lulls ensued because the owners in Ukraine could log in and watch what they're doing. And it appeared to me that the owners in Ukraine really didn't care. They were getting more entertainment value out of these over in Russia than they did in Ukraine, so they let them roll. Now, I have to admit my own fault here. I didn't understand the distance between these two cities, so I had to put this in for reference. I was going to say
Yeah.
for reference for Americans, but there's probably Americans that understand this. This is nearly like 4,000 miles away. You know, this is not just like taking it from one side of the country
No.
going to the other side of the country. Like this got on a train, a plane, and flew, let's just say like 25% of the world where these people install these devices. I found that funny afterwards. I was like, wow, you know, I was expecting like just a few miles down the road. No. Other side of the country of Russia there, which is pretty big country.
Yeah. To fly from one end to the other, it's 9 hour flight. Going from
Yeah,
Moscow to Vladivostok is 9 hours.
it was like 82-hour drive when I looked it up on Google Maps. I just couldn't even believe it. You know, what was the
It's a
price markup on a
massive
stolen?
country. Yeah.
Yeah, what's the price markup on a stolen CCT camera? You gotta count in, you know, energy, gas costs, and everything like that. That's not cheap nowadays.
Yeah.
Transportation, all that. So yeah, just kind of a more funnier moment from the Russian-Ukraine war. Transferring out of that, the United States government, specifically the FBI, put out a private industry notification called PIN about a specific Iranian threat group. Once again, I'm gonna have a hard time pronouncing this. Emet Parsagard. They're conducting hack and leak operations using false flag personas. So their primary target has been Israel lately, and their goal is to undermine public confidence in the election system and also other types of critical infrastructure. They are previously seen targeting the 2020 US presidential election, so we might see them come back around in the next few months here in the United States. They use a mix of computer intrusions and exaggerated and false claims. So this is what we were talking about a little bit with Killnet, as far as like you need to have evidence that you knocked something over for people to believe
Yeah.
it. And these threat groups, well, threat group going under multiple personas, has been known to exaggerate and falsify claims of attacks. Now, the personas that they use are two personas that we're very familiar with: Hackers of Savior and Diaz. So,
It's
if you
been a
watch some of
while.
our
Yeah.
yeah, if you watch some of our previous TRLs, you would see us talking about Hackers of Savior in these groups as well. So FBI just wants to kind of warn people in Israel and also the United States that these groups are active, and these are the personas that they're using at the moment.
Mexico.
This is a good one too.
Yeah. Guacamaya. We only have good ones, Daniel. We established
No,
that last time, right?
yeah, I kept saying this one of the
Interesting and good.
guacamole leaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is interesting. This is good. Yeah.
The guacamaya. So
Yeah, the Guacamaya leaks, but Guacamaya is Macau in Spanish. So that's why I put a picture of a parrot there.
learn
ASCII
something new every day.
encoded, ASCII encoded picture of a Macau, and then made it a little bit nicer. So that's a group of hackers that were actually going in Latin America. They already infiltrated servers of armed forces in Chile, Peru, Colombia, and El Salvador. And guess what they used? Not such an old breach, but a very high profile called Proxy Shell. Remember, if you go a few episodes back again, you will see that the Exchange service vulnerability that we covered called Proxy Shell is pretty big and pretty important. I think that the security community was pretty much aligned on the fact that everybody should patch immediately. Well, apparently, armed forces in Chile, Peru, Colombia, and El Salvador didn't hear the message. And in the case of Mexico, where the actual breach happened, it was even worse because of budget cuts. Apparently, they were not using the Exchange service anymore. They use Zimbra. And there are some known vulnerabilities in Zimbra, and it was not patched. So apparently, the attackers, Guacamaya, the group Guacamaya, was able to infiltrate into Zimbra and extract several terabytes, so 6 terabyte of internal and confidential information. So email communications. Daniel, stop playing with the mouse.
I'm sorry, ADHD got the best of me.
Yeah, I see that. But I'm like following. Oh. So confidential information, mostly emails from Mexico's National Defense Secretariat. So what came out of this? So there were several impacts. First thing that came out, and probably the most important, is that health problems that were unknown by Mexicans until that leak happened were revealed. So health problems from the president Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. I hope I say that right, with all our names that we have to mention here. So the president of Mexico has health problems, and that was not known to Mexicans. That was only known to a very limited group of people in high areas near to the president, and that was leaked by that information stash that they published. Also, conversations of high commanders on everything that has to do with pursuit of drug traffickers and criminals. So what operations are happening? What phone chats are they listening to? So all the information of the fight against drug criminals and traffickers, that's all out there now. So they know exactly who they're targeting, how they're targeting them. Also detailed information about the monitoring of media, journalists, activists, and human rights people that were of interest to the military. So how the military is spying on their journalists and activists and human rights defenders. And then fourth and not least was also information about the relation between authorities and criminal groups. So how the authorities probably were corrupted and were working together with some of the criminal groups. So that's a pretty impactful leak that you have there
Oh
by
yeah,
those hackers.
yeah,
And
definitely dangerous one down there.
by a stupid vulnerability. I cannot say if it was bad or good that this leaked, but yeah, the way it happened again is a vulnerability that could be avoided.
So a couple things here. NSA, and we've been covering them a lot. Actually, they're making memes, they're dropping reports. This is kind of a fun year for the NSA, I guess. They published recently through was it Info Security Magazine 6 top takeaways from Ukraine, and I thought these were at least interesting enough to share with the audience. Both espionage and destructive attacks will occur in conflict. I think this was really kind of obvious. Um, but through the Russian-Ukrainian situation, we've seen a number of espionage and destructive attacks occur in what we consider the hybrid warfare era. Cybersecurity industry has a unique insight into these conflicts. I would agree 100% with this. In a conversation with Victor Zohar, the head of the SSSCIP in Ukraine, he mentioned multiple times about how intelligence from cybersecurity industry has helped Ukraine stay ahead of some of these attacks that have come in, and that's kind of the reason why we haven't seen these massive outages as far as like electrical plants and things like that we had seen previously in Ukraine via Russia. Sensitive intelligence can make a directive decision. So once again, playing on number two, a lot of the intelligence that private companies such as Radware and other groups out there that are working with Ukraine can help mitigate these DDoS attacks and other things that are being launched at them from Russia. You do develop resiliency skills. So this kind of goes back to the past 8 years against Russia, or in Ukraine. Prior to this conflict, Ukraine had been targeted by Russia for, I think it was like 6 to 8 years. It was pretty brutal. You see dark energy and all kinds of massive APT groups. And because
Not
of this,
Petya.
yeah, not pet. Yeah, massive, massive attacks. Because of this, they've developed resiliency skills. Going into the Russian-Ukrainian war, they're very much prepared for these type of attacks, and that's kind of the reason why we're not seeing them, is that they were there, ready to mitigate in advance. One of the other things that NSA had mentioned is don't try to go this alone. I think a lot of people out there want to isolate. They want to sit there in their little silo and pretend like they can protect themselves from everything in the world. But in reality, this is going to take a community to defend against. And that's something that we've kind of seen come together as far as the Russian-Ukrainian war, is let's just say the Western community coming together to help Ukraine. And you do not have to you have not planned enough yet for the contingencies. So there's always other things that are going to happen, right? And you have a plan. I forget what boxer it was. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, and then everything changes, right? So you need to be flexible with your defenses, and you need to be able to move very quickly, depending on how the threat landscape shifts nowadays. Moving on to other NSA reports, the NSA also revealed the top CVEs used by China. We're not really kind of going to dig into them, but these are the top CVEs that
Yeah,
NSA says that.
not really a surprise there. Log4j, Pulse Connect, Atlassian, Exchange. Hey, proxy shell. Big F5, big IP. We all covered them actually.
Yeah, VMware. Yeah, these are things that Atlassian. These are all things that we've pretty much covered in the last 26 episodes. So be prepared. If the NSA has come out publicly to say these are the things you should be worried about, these are probably the things you should be worried about if your threat actor, your enemy is China, right? So
Well, who isn't China the enemy?
that's a good segue into the next slide. So Taiwan has been dealing with a lot of situations since the Nancy Pelosi visit. A lot of contention, a lot of cyber attacks, specifically DDoS attacks and defacements against Taiwan before, during, and after Nancy Pelosi's visit, and it has caused Taiwan to be more in a defensive position, right? So the Minister of Digital Development argued in Taiwan that they need to build a national red team, which I'll let Pascal talk about in a minute, why a red team is so important. But they basically want to assess business and governments with organized simulated attacks to help identify misconfigurations or loopholes in the system. But this also follows the idea to use the interplanetary file system as a way to mitigate outages in the country as well. So they're definitely out there being proactive. I'll just say that much.
I'm looking up IPFS, Interplanetary File System. Yeah, it's not a joke.
Yeah.
Damn. So they're actually already planning for outer space. That's good.
More of a distributed network, but yeah,
Yeah, it's a Web3 technology. Yeah, it's a distributed file system that uses blockchain kind of technology to distribute multiple versions of the same file. So when you get attacked by DDoS, there's always somewhere a segment of that file or a file that is still available. So that's how they want to build resistance against DDoS attacks. Now for privacy, I don't know if the blockchain is the best tool, given that it's visible for everyone, except but
But
not
red
everyone.
teaming is something that's very important nowadays.
But the red teaming, yeah, absolutely. So and that's something that we saw in the threat landscape. The threat landscape was changed 2020, 2021 as we had the corona. So because of COVID, many people started working remotely. And that's where we saw ransomware groups getting more successful and their extortions, the money that they were able to extort growing immensely and being successful and gaining a lot of money. And that's where we saw that the initial access brokers that were working as affiliates for the ransomware operators, that they were more using manual ways to get into organizations. So they went to existing leaks, they bought leaks, did credential stuffing, tried to poke into RDP connections, so remote desktop, SSL VPN, whatever was possible to get an authentication, they would do it, and they would do it manually, not automated. And that's something that changed in the threats that we're seeing and facing today, is that the attacker has become manual again. So there was a time that we said that all attacks are going automated, so you need to protect yourself and fight automation with automation. And the way that we build our security today is that when there's a company somewhere in North America, for example, who gets attacked, somebody will investigate the attack, will create a signature. That signature or that idea will get sent around the world, and everybody will be protected against the same attack, which works very well for automated attacks, because the same attack will not only come to that one organization in North America, but will be faced globally. So everybody who has that signature will be able to stop that same attack. And typically those attacks will follow vulnerabilities. So we can get a heads on, or we can be before the attacks happening by creating signatures from vulnerabilities before the exploits are actually published. So, but that's fighting automation. That will not stop a manual attacker, because manual attackers, they sit there, they can waste 6 months trying to break into your organization, testing every possible avenue to find a way in. And they will not making a lot of noise. They will not use automated products like pen test tools that will set off all the alarm bells in the SOC and make the SOC light up like a Christmas tree. No, they will do it manually, step by step, and they will take their time. And why can they take their time? Because they know after 6 months there's a potential payout that runs in the millions. Because initial access broker can get up to 80% of the paid ransom, if a ransom demand is paid. So by the operator, so they will give them 80% of that ransom. That's what we saw with our Revel. So
It's
they
pretty
will
amazing.
not leave any stone unturned. And that's where actually, and we are building a series of webinars and talking with industry experts, because we are not the experts on red teaming, but we're talking with different industry experts, and we're gonna build a web series out of that. So look for Radware. This will come soon. I think we will start that in January. We're already doing all the preparations, but that will be an interesting series where we talk to different people in different um, parts of the industry who are doing red teaming exercises. And red teaming is, yeah, it's different than pen testing. Pen testing is just testing a very specific application for all potential vulnerabilities and all potential exploits. It sets off all the alarm bells in the SOC. Red teaming, however, can be done, for example, through a phishing campaign to an employee, maybe corrupting an employee, or giving him money, or leaving a USB stick on the floor, or putting a drone on the roof and hacking into the Wi-Fi, trying to get in without making too much noise. And once inside, and that's where red teaming is also different than pen testing. Pen testing just wants to show you are vulnerable, but red teaming can go a step further, can go really deep inside and see how much they can move laterally. Can they get to the crown jewels? How much information can they get? How much information is impacted? So there's a lot to be learned from red teaming exercises. Now, the question that we also ask to red teaming people is, should that be people on the payrolls? Can you hire external people? So if you're interested in that, join us in January with our red teaming web series, because we're going to go into detail on that. But it's very interesting that Taiwan, well, it's not Taiwan. It's actually a famous hacker in Taiwan, right? Who's pushing for the red team. But
Yeah,
it's,
Audrey,
yeah.
she's definitely pushing really hard to secure Taiwan's defense
Mhm.
system, and it's really kind of notable to see this. It's a hard thing to say you want to nationalize something, but a nationalized red team is something that almost every country should literally be looking into doing right now.
Yeah.
So over into your neck of the woods, right?
Wait. Ah, yeah.
We're fighting for control of the mouse here.
Yeah.
I will say I love this logo. I'm a huge fan. Like the minimalist side of the colors of the country and the globe below and the use of the owl. I'm a fan.
Well,
Definitely a fan.
if we don't have the command yet, at least we have the logo, right?
That's all it counts sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
look at how many vulnerabilities get out there with logos and pictures and
Hmm.
everything before there's even a CVE.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool, and very noticeable Belgian. You have the three colors, black, yellow, and
Yeah.
red, the Belgian colors. So Belgium is planning on a cyber command by 2024. It's not like we're the first. South Korea already announced that they are looking at a 100,000 workforce, based also on volunteers, civilian volunteers, whenever there would be a war, to help them in a cyber war. Very much like copying the idea of IT Army of Ukraine. And then you had the US, who came out, the director of the US Cyber Command, who sent out the message, hey, you want to become a nation
Yeah.
state
Let me
hacker? exploit was one of the words. So defend, what was it? Defend, something else, and
Oh,
exploit. But I, I,
yep,
I really like the exploit. So offensive security. That's
that's the
part of
United
it.
States for you.
Yeah. Yeah, but before the United States was like, we offensive? No, we never did any campaigns or attacks. Stuxnet? No, 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 no. That wasn't us. No, Olympic Destroyer?
Yeah.
No way. We don't do that kind of stuff. And now they're like, hey, want to become a nation state hacker and exploit other countries? Come and join us.
I remember it was like several years ago, but it was at Cyber Week in Israel. And there was a US government official that was talking about the golden rule of cyber, that you do as we say, not as we do. I think Pandora's box is open and everybody knows
Yeah.
how to play this game now.
Yeah, so interesting that a country the size of Belgium, because I still think that Belgium is a pretty small country. I always tend to make fun of our army because of its size. And still, we are looking at a cyber command. So there will be a new component, which is cyber warfare. And looking at bringing this up, it will be not voluntary based. It will be actually recruiting military personnel and civilians, they also said. But I think they will all be in some way professional army. But by 2024, so in 2 years, I will be safe.
Hey, I was going to go the other way and say that we have our safety net. We have a backup career. If all else
Ah, yeah.
fails, we're going to become nation state threat actors, and then
Yeah.
you will have to deal with us.
Yeah, even if you're a bad guy, you can become part of the program. No, no.
Yeah. Oh man. So moving over into more of the vulnerability and exploit side of our monthly topic here is one of the things I want to bring up is the 8220. And that is really close to 8200. Just really too close to the
Israel,
Israeli
yeah,
intelligence side of
yeah,
thing. Yeah, 8220 is a malicious threat actor group. So I just want to make that clear. They're targeting misconfigured clouds, and that's one of the reasons why I like to bring this up over and over again. Is because when Mirai and all that stuff came out, it was all about IoT devices, and we all wrote tons of reports about how our IoT devices are going to be leveraged. They're always on. They can launch massive attacks. Well, here we are in 2022, and it's now they're looking at misconfigured clouds because they're always on and they have bigger pipes. Specifically about this group 8220, they're a low-skilled cybercrime group that basically uses known vulnerabilities in brute force, so very not very advanced. But their botnet is estimated to be 3,000 bots or 30,000 bots. They're not launching DDoS attacks; they're doing cryptocurrency mining, which kind of boggles my mind. I think also Pascal's as well. Is why is anybody doing cryptocurrency mining? But
yeah.
hodl, right? There's someone out there that is criminals are hodling, saying it's going to go to the moon again. Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Let's see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, talking about cloud misconfiguration. It can happen to the best, you know.
Hmm.
So BlueBleed, Stock Radar, which is a company that is specialized in like 8220, scanning the cloud for publicly exposed buckets of information. That's pretty much what they're doing continuously. Happy to see that we have a white hat that does it more aggressively than a black hat, because yeah, that's where the information is. That's one of the ways of finding those misconfigurations. And I have to say, like when COVID was there, so 2020, 2021, you saw a lot of organizations hastily moving to the cloud. I'm not saying that those organizations never planned to move their applications and their workloads into the cloud, but they accelerated their plans because people were going to work remotely, and it's much more convenient and much more better and available to put that application in the cloud if you have people working remotely. So it's much easier to access and it's much probably better protected. However, if you do it hastily and then you have developers coming in doing testing on their applications, putting out a database, first thing a developer does is taking down all security measures because they don't want their software to break on a security restriction, because if that happens, they can waste hours looking for a problem in their code while it's a security restriction. So the first thing that developers do is take away the whole wall of ACLs and all kinds of customized security things. So it might happen at some time that with agile development and feature velocity and new applications coming in and people rotating and working several jobs and several projects at the same time, that somebody forgets to close that database. Now, in this case, it was a misconfigured Azure bucket that contained, it was actually six buckets, I believe that they said, or one bucket with several objects in it. So it was Azure blob storage. Blob is binary large objects. Yeah, binary large objects. So that means that those are not directly accessible as a text file, but those were like database backups and database formats. Anything that somebody with some affinity in development would be able to understand what kind of format it is and download the right tool to go look into that information. And those blobs were containing more than 150,000 different companies' information that they did or partnered up with Microsoft. So those were Microsoft partners. It's from the Microsoft ecosystems. Apparently, there's like hundreds of thousands of emails, users, and projects. And I would not stare blindly at the numbers because Microsoft had come back and reacted to SockRadar, told them that some of them were counted twice. However, Microsoft never said that that they did not believe what SockRadar said or that they weren't wrong or weren't right, better. So Microsoft was in the wrong. That was exposed. Maybe not as much as 335,000 emails and users and projects. But a lot of partners from the Microsoft ecosystem will be affected by this. And actually, BlueBleed had a tool online where you can check your domain name. So if you go to BlueBleed, you can find that tool and you can check with your domain name if you are a Microsoft partner, if your information was leaked there. Microsoft said that they notified all affected customers, but just to be sure, you can always check your name there. Now, BlueBleed is not giving any details because they are getting sued for having that information available. I'm not sure if it was Microsoft, but Microsoft expressed that they didn't like the idea of putting that search engine there, that what BlueBleed was doing. So, but anyway, so as you can see, it even happens to the best. Their own cloud misconfiguration on a data object that resulted in a leak of a lot of information. A leak that might not have a direct impact right now, but as we saw, might have some impact later down the road as people start using those emails and phone numbers in credential stuffing, trying to work their way through multi-factor authentication, try to tire off the guy by sending several multi-factor authentications, finding out his phone numbers. Yeah, there's all kinds of nice things that you can do with phone numbers and emails.
It's amazing too, the amount of leaks and hacks that have happened like just in the last year, right? Like going back even off all of COVID has been pretty substantial. And like,
Mm.
you have to kind of look forward as a threat researcher. What does this mean for the future threat landscape? And it means in the coming years, as Pascal said, there's going to be so many usernames, phone numbers, email addresses, credentials everywhere. Credential access is going to be one of the number one things that we'll be talking about in the future. Initial access is all going to come because of these leaks. It's something to really be concerned about. I will personally say that the cloud might be a mistake, and that people kind of need to look at what they're doing and where they store it. But yeah, I mean, the hybrid system is great, but if you have misconfigurations or your cloud has misconfigurations that you don't know about, could be an issue. And this goes back to the whole red teaming and auditing and looking at your network and making sure these things don't exist and testing your systems to see how resilient you are against them.
Yeah, and we just come out. We are just recovering from the slap in the face from Optus, the Australian,
Yeah.
where it is like the biggest leak for Australia that ever happened, and now this, like, okay.
Yeah, and then following up on that, also this month, GitHub posted the advisory about security vulnerabilities inside databases. So they went searching for CVEs and other security advisories from GitHub and all the open source software that is on GitHub, and it's pretty amazing. They found a lot of issues inside different systems, and if you actually go to the website and you find a system, you can click on it and see the description of the vulnerability and how it impacts that package. Pascal, how do you feel about open source software?
Well, yeah, I I leverage it all the time. I actually grew up with open source as much as I was one of the first. I'm pretty sure one of the first users of Linux when it was still like in the 0.0 levels. When it was YGG Drizzle, where you had to buy it on a CD and compile half of the tools for the kernel to make it work on your system, which was a 486. So yeah, I'm pretty familiar with open source. However, the direction that we're going now is that everybody's leveraging those scripting languages like Python and Go and Rust and the whole lot of new things that are coming down the road as well. But those programming languages are not popular because of the way that you program with them. They all have their unique features and capabilities and use cases, I agree. However, the performance of a programming language depends a lot on its ecosystem and the community around it. There's the ecosystem that is built with all the modules. If you need to write something in Python, you can write the most complex thing in Python, even using AI and machine learning, using pandas and using just a couple of modules that are out there that are written by other people. The only thing that you do is glue together modules from other people, but you never know what's in that module. And that module depends on other modules, which depend on other modules. And it wouldn't be the first time that we see in the node and on the NPM store that somebody is retracting his module and affecting hundreds of thousands of websites that cannot recompile to the latest version anymore because that module is gone because of disgruntled developer or another developer that was angry against Russia and wanted to join the whole
Oh
hacktivism
yeah.
movement and put in some encryption of files on your desktop if you run the module. And then you have others. Of course, when you use Python, you can use it for controlling your network devices, and then you would use a library that does SSH, that implements an SSH client. Paramico is a very popular one, and that module actually was infected at some point by an info stealer that takes information from each SSH connection. And even if they don't do SSH connection, one of the best practices for developers, if you submit your project into Git and you do version control in a public Git, you don't want to put your hard-coded passwords in your source code or in a
Very good point.
configuration file that sits in that same Git, right? Because that's, yeah, once it's in Git, it will never get out of it. It's version control. So that means everybody can go back in the versions. There's hundreds of thousands of passwords out there in GitHub. So what is the solution? Well, you put your secrets in environment variables. Yeah, well, until somebody writes a module that just reads out the environment variables, and then all your AWS identities and secrets can be stolen easily and submitted to their website. So, and that also happened. So that what we call software supply chain attack. So yeah, that's pretty much my idea of open source software. Be careful.
You know, when I first started this industry, someone told me this joke. If the person has a giant gray beard or bald, you should listen to them. And this is very much the truth. You should listen to Pascal and definitely audit and check run red teaming on any of your open source stuff because this is a nightmare and he has seen it all.
Yeah, I just shaved
Talk
my
about
beard. So.
yeah, huge white
Yeah,
beard
and
is amazing.
just do it, but later. So you go
So in
do
other
it,
news,
but wait until the end to go do it.
speaking about Dutch masters here,
Uh-huh.
the Dutch police tricked Deadbolt into releasing 150 decryption keys with a trick with Bitcoin. So this hack was submitted to authorities by security company responders.nu. And with a multi-agency operation, including Europol, the French National Police, they were able to recover these. So Deadbolt basically encrypts QNAP devices. And so there's over 20,000 QNAP devices that were encrypted, and the police sent a payment to receive the decryption keys and then immediately withdrew the payment from the system. So they ended up with the actual
Nothing. Yeah.
decryption keys and they got their money back. I, bravo,
Yeah.
bravo. If I stood up, you wouldn't see me, but amazing, absolutely amazing.
No
I
honor
love
among
reading.
thieves. Yeah.
Yeah, but I really love seeing these kind of stories. You know, it kind of gives
Mhm.
the community a little bit of a pet, we might actually do well here. We might might win the war.
Yeah, for people who don't know what QNAP devices is, those are NAS devices, network attached storage. So those little devices full of disks where you put all your data at home. So yeah, when that gets encrypted, you can be sad about that.
Pretty amazing trick, though. I mean, if I was one of the Deadbolt operators, I'd be so mad. I lost all my decryption keys and all my money.
Yeah.
And also, reportedly, they had to take down their infrastructure. I guess they're rebuilding right now. So, we have bad weekends because of threat actors, and we can cause bad weekends. It's a two-edged sword here.
Yeah, well, I'm happy we're starting to fight back. That's also what we saw in the beginning of the year, but then the war happened and then everything changed. But the authorities were gaining on the bad guys. The number of people who get rolled up, and Dutch police has been very creative, haven't they? They have
Oh
been
yeah.
sending emails to people who did DDoS attacks through booters and stressor. Hey, my friend, this is the last time that I see you here in this database because next time I come and get you.
Yeah, the
Stealing.
Dutch have definitely earned themselves a place on that list of
Oh
countries
yeah.
not to mess with.
Uh-huh.
So going over to the gaming side, Final Fantasy 14, which has suffered a number of DDoS attacks over the last few months, is now warning users of potential unauthorized access to their accounts. So Square Enix experienced what would be considered a credential stuffing attack. They didn't specifically say it, but you read between the lines. It was a credential stuffing attack targeting their account management system. So the attack was using a combination of emails and passwords obtained from a corporate data leak, so a third-party leak, right? And this is what we see with credential stuffing attacks. Is it's really easy. A criminal just goes and finds a current username password database that was leaked, and they attempt to use those username and passwords on every single targeted site because most users will reuse username and password.
But
They will
Daniel,
have some
no, that is
success.
not true. Corporate usernames are not used for playing games. Come on, what are you saying?
Oh yeah, but work from home and cross contamination has now become an issue.
Of course, everybody has a different password for logging into work and logging into PlayStation. Of course.
So this was a pretty good one. So they put out a warning saying that please change your username and passwords, and I don't
Yeah,
think users are going to fall through this. I think it's going to be a continued issue. And on the other side of credential stuffing, from the network side, this can come through as looking like a DDoS as well. The threat actors that are running these word lists and these password lists against your account management system could definitely become flooded with so many requests that it just falls over completely. So it's nothing more to be concerned with just as a user, but also from a network defender side.
Now
Going into other
the
games,
the
what's
good
that?
thing, yeah, I wanted to say the good thing of being Belgian is that half of the Belgian and also the French guys, they all have AZERTY keyboards. So we never use the QWERTY
Mm.
keyword, the QWERTY password.
So if you want to make a new RockU text file, grab yourself a new keyboard and have at it.
Yeah,
Stop
if you
picking
have a
us.
Dvorak one or something like where the keys are like, oh yeah, no. QWERTY
Start
one, two,
using
three,
like
four.
letters
Yeah.
from multiple languages here and throw them for a curveball.
I actually had to change to a QWERTY keyboard because our corporate password is QWERTY1234. I never managed to type it on AZERTY, so
I really hope it's not QWERTY 1234 on anything out there. Someone's gonna be password
it's a
spraying it
strong
just to find
password.
out.
My password manager says it's strong because it has 16 characters. So.
We might have some interesting people jumping into the Telegram chat later this week. Hey, you said a red teaming, right? No, 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 no. Not without authorization.
Yeah,
So the other side of gaming, Overwatch 2, which is I'm not a video game player, but I guess this is a very popular game. This is the second one they've launched.
absolutely.
They launched on October 4th, and it was having major outages. And at the beginning, it wasn't necessarily due to a DDoS attack. It was due to over 40,000 people waiting in a queue to download a massive game. There's wait times up to 3 hours. People got very upset about this, and lulls followed. Someone decided it would be great just to throw a DDoS attack on top of
On top of
40,000
that,
people waiting
yeah.
to download a game, and everything became a nightmare for gamers. And as they always do, they went to social media complaining about this, and a lot of people learned about it to the point that the actual people behind Square Enix had to go out and tweet about the DDoS attack happening. So, when we were talking about earlier with Killnet and all that stuff about undermining your system, This is a way to do it, right? So this is an upset, disgruntled user that is launching a DDoS attack in a launch day, basically not to really mess with people downloading, but more or less to mess with the corporation and cast judgment upon them as far as like, are you competent enough to release a game?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to blame gaming companies when they release games. It's tough, tens of thousands of people want to download a game all on the same day. Things happen. But
They
when people
were a
start throwing
victim of
DDoS,
their own popularity, right?
right. That's a tough thing about the gaming world, as I understand. This is a very popular thing. People want to download these games. I think what Modern Warfare 2's
Mhm.
just come out, so there's probably
Yeah,
gonna be issues
yeah,
with that as
exactly.
well.
Yeah,
Release week is never an easy one for a gaming company, especially if someone decides to throw a DDoS attack at them.
on top of it, yeah. And yeah,
Yeah,
those who are not happy might decide to do a DDoS attack because they're unhappy. So it's like, yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy.
self-inflicted, self-inflicting wound, exactly.
Yeah, Text4Shell. Yeah, that's yeah. The the image says it all. Keep calm and patch. It's a high score vulnerability. It's 9.8. It's remote command execution, so there's capabilities to remotely exploit it. However, Text4Shell, it's in the Apache Commons text modules. It's not that widely spread compared to its other 4Shell, which was Log4Shell. It's not as widely spread as Log4j. Log4j was used by pretty much every Java application that we come to know, or at least every application that is connected to the internet or in some way uh, linked to an internet service. Common text is less widely spread, and also in most of the cases, it is not used by taking external information and interpolating it in its strings. Uh, but that said, there's still that danger. It can interpolate and execute commands if it's not used correctly. So Radware already did an impact analysis of all the product and patched it the way it should be done. Um, WordFence, however, at some point came out to say that after the vulnerability or the vulnerability was disclosed, that they saw in the wild exploit attempts. You know what we also do from time to time when we also did it with Log4Shell. And actually we'll do it again now. I will show you in a couple of seconds how hard Log4Shell is still hitting. But hey, Text4Shell, yeah, there are exploit attempts according to WordFence. So when you look at the examples that they give three different examples. And the first example is, well, it's riddled with all kinds of DNS leveraging host names. So what they did in Log4Shell, and that's the first time that we saw this, actually doing a DNS name resolving. So what happens when you have a host name and you pass it through to a module that will interpolate that? Well, he will try to resolve the host name, and as he resolves the host name, who is he contacting? DNS. And who will be contacted to give the final authoritative answer? It's the authoritative DNS server. So if you own an authoritative DNS server for the domain like tres.cf, for example, you will see requests coming in. Now, if you encode a key for each unique site that you're trying to probe to see if they're vulnerable, if that DNS gets resolved on your DNS server or tries to be resolved on your DNS server with that unique key, you know that this site was vulnerable. If the site never tries to resolve, that means that the site that you were trying to exploit was not vulnerable. Now, I think that this is Trust security. I cannot put my finger on the .cf, but Trust security is known for, they did some scans before, and I think that this is a typical technique they use, and also attackers will not litter in all the except encoding, except language, except no location, origin, refer. That's like everywhere. That is trying to find out if an application is vulnerable and then send a message. In some cases, it's even like the vulnerability bug bounty programs that take part in this. So they find this and then they send an email to the administrator of the website or the responsible of the company saying, hey, we found that in your application, there and there and there and there, you have that vulnerability that is exploitable. You should fix it. And hey, I'm a bounty hunter, so you can contact me there and pay me there for finding your vulnerability if you would like that. And the second one is the same thing. It's an execution of curl, but you see that curl goes to unique key.coast.online. So again, it's a resolving of a unique key in the DNS. And then the other get is a canary token. Canary tokens that everybody can activate, and canary tokens is to find out if somebody was using that canary token. So there's no real exploits here. Now, the funny thing is the IP address in red, so they redacted pretty much everything, but I think they forgot to redact their external honeypot because the X forwarded 4, that's typically the proxy that forwarded this message. So I'm not sure if WordFence, that is your IP for your honeypot, but if it is and you're listening, change your IP address for your honeypot because now everybody knows.
or collect even more attacks. You know, it could
Yeah.
go both ways.
Yeah,
Either
well,
or.
yeah, you can collect more attacks. Yeah, you will learn more. Yeah. That's probably why my honeypots are going wild.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I promised it. Look for shell activity. Just for information. So I took the latest graphs now in Q3, so including Q3 of this year, and as you can see by the right side of the graph, log4j is not slowing down. We've seen it already being abused by ransomware operators. We've seen it abused by nation states. Muddy Water, the Iranian nation state, has been using it to collect information. North Korean, Lazarus, of course. We, you cannot guess why they use it, right? And then you have also the opportunistic hackers mining campaigns. As you said, Daniel, who still does crypto mining? Yeah, well, people who like Log4Shell apparently. And then the other is bot herders trying to get some information or systems, bring them together. So if you still did not patch, which is bad, 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 you should do it, right? Now we know that there's always that number of systems that will stay unpatched like forever. It does happen. People don't even know that they're using log4j. Some people not even aware that log4shell exists. So yeah, some people live in a corner and are happy and sleep at night. Other people's they live in hell and try to patch as soon as possible. So same for Text4Shell. Please patch. Do not wait for patching. It's not because there's no exploits in the wild and that there's a slim chance that your application is vulnerable. You should still patch.
But remember, keep calm while patching.
But keep calm while patching. Don't get nervous. Don't patch it 5 times like Log4j. Don't fix it 6 times before the fix is complete. Okay. Don't
the first
panic.
5 times you had to figure out what the issue was. The 6th time
Oh,
was the
and
perfect one.
by the way, at least we will have a calm weekend, but November 1st there will be a disclosure of an OpenSSL vulnerability that has been pre-announced. It's like they're already creating drama around it, so I would expect that it might
Oh,
be.
that's why I was making a joke about earlier. There's actually like pictures and names to go with it. You know, everybody's just jonesing to
Yeah.
get in the
Oh,
marketing.
OpenSSL hell or something, yeah. I
Yeah.
already saw this one coming, yeah. So something that ends with hell and
I
starts with
mean, listen,
OpenSSL. Yeah.
if an exploit comes out, open up MS Paint and just start designing.
Yeah.
And you never know, you might become famous.
Yeah,
It happens.
Kevin. Yeah.
People get into marketing, and speaking of bad marketing, this is a classic example of what happens when someone in marketing thinks they have a genius idea without actually being an expert. And that's a nice way of putting it. I'm sorry, but there's been many people in the community that have thrown their comments at this, and now it's my turn. Okay, I get the idea that we need to sit down and create a boogeyman and say like, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. But currently, the darknet doesn't work. Everybody talks about how Bitcoin's easily to identify. Everybody rushes to XMR. Most of these websites either DDoS or get taken down or get raided. And then you have Trend Micro over here that says the metaverse is about to be the next platform for the Darkverse, Web 3.0 darknet. And it's pretty crazy. I mean, these people literally go into this this conversation about how criminals are going to put on Oculuses and go to special meetup places to
Use their
secure.
Facebook account to log in. Yeah.
It's the stupidest thing ever. And like I said, this is what happens when you have people in marketing that think they're experts but have no clue what they're talking about. Because if they knew what they were talking about, they would understand the flaws already with 2.0's Darknet and why no one would go to 3.0. The problem with 2.0 is personal identifiable information, as Pascal said. 3.0 literally runs on the idea of creating all this identity in this virtual avatar. You know how hard it is to anonymize all that information? And there's the assumption that criminals are going to skip over this fucking.
You can yeah, beep.
That someone's going to skip over this, and just go running right into the metaverse and start selling cocaine. No, this is not happening. It's not happening at all. I think it's
you
the most silliest thing ever.
you cannot even boot your Oculus Quest without a valid account, and that account goes through a ID check verification and stuff like that. So no, no.
It's amazing. I'll just break it down simply. Selling drugs in the real world, very little evidence. Maybe cash, maybe got caught on a camera on a corner. Very, very little way to get in trouble. Web 2.0, you've got Bitcoin, you got IDs, you got accounts, you got transactions, you got packets, you got all kinds of things to tie you to the crime. And then all of a sudden now we're thinking that Web 3.0 is going to even have more dots to connect. The idea in crime is to have as less evidence as possible to convict you. So why would you go to 3.0 where you're just creating more of a cookie trail for the authorities to follow? And it's not like the authorities aren't going to go here either. If the criminals say they're going to go, the authorities follow every
Now,
time. So
no, I can understand if they would say that there would be a lot of scamming in those environments. That I can see happening. That's what you
it
get
happened with NFTs
when
too.
when people meet people. Put 100 people in the same place, and organically there will be scammers if there's something in void like loot or like anything that you have to pay for. Scammers will be there. Scammers are everywhere, and scammers will be in the Darkverse. But an underground marketplace where you walk in with your avatar,
You've got to be a fool to
uh,
walk into a Darkverse to go buy
pay
something illegal.
pay
It's just
pay with your Google Wallet or what? No, I don't think so.
it's silly season over in InfoSec when we start talking
Yeah,
about Darkverse. Moving
yeah.
on.
Moving on. Forget.
So this is something I talked about last month. There's a series of swatting events at targeted schools. If you don't know what swatting is, it's basically where a cyber criminal calls up using different proxies and voice modulators and sound effects in the background and convinces the police department that there's a massive shooting or crime going on where there's no option other than to send the SWAT team in. There's been 16 states now in the month of September that have been targeted by swatting over 90 false reports inside these 16 states. And the sad part is in the United States right now, we currently have a really bad situation going on with school shootings. Considering there's been multiple school shootings just in the last few weeks, if you're a police department and you get this call in from some kid claiming he's shot with gun sounds in the background, I don't blame the SWAT team for showing up the way they do. Now, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that this might be the mastermind. There might be one mastermind or group behind these series of swatting events. But it's definitely a sad situation to see cyber criminals doing this to educational institutes. Now, speaking of other sad DDoS attacks here.
Sorry, your mouse.
Give me the mouse back.
Sorry, I was watching YouTube. Sorry.
Catching up on content.
Yeah.
So Erie 911 system had an outage, and this is pretty interesting. This is why I really wanted to kind of talk about it. The U.S. Emergency Center was knocked offline and prevented cellular calls into 911. So if you had a normal landline, you could call 911, but in the world that we live in, everybody calls on the cell phone. The authorities are saying it's an intentional DOS. It was over a 50-minute stream that one specific cell phone called every 7 seconds to 911, preventing anybody else from calling in. Now, the interesting thing about this attack is that the cell phone that called in every 7 seconds was a non-activated, deactivated phone. So with all the phones that we have nowadays, they're all always on. You can't remove the battery, all kinds of other privacy issues. But you
Can't
can
remove
actually
the
call
SIM card.
911. Yeah, but with those devices, you can still call 911 even if it's deactivated and possibly if it doesn't even have its battery in it. I don't know. I don't believe the rumors, but yeah, these devices can still make calls to emergency lines, and this is exactly what happened. As a deactivated phone basically DOS a 911 center for 15 minutes.
And watches.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, connecting everything to the internet was a bad idea.
SOS call watches, you know, those watches that even do it through satellite. One
Yeah, I actually have a
malfunction.
few of those for exploring the mountains and caves and everything out here, where you can actually send an SOS if you're in trouble, or you can send a text message where you are. Now, apparently, with the new iPhone 14s, you can actually do that as well. But
Did
it's
you
currently
already talk
snowing.
about our sponsor for today, Garmin?
No, I didn't. Apple's paycheck came in first, so
Yeah,
that's why I was going to
okay.
i14.
Yeah, you cannot
Right.
even remove the SIM card anymore from the iPhone. So
Yeah,
at least
exactly.
in Europe you still can, but not in America.
But if I get stuck in the cave in the Colorado mountains, apparently I
Yeah,
can still send a text message. So
yeah,
if you get a help from me, please
yeah.
help.
Satellite.
So another alert that Radware pushed out this month was about rough start to the school year. If you've been following our videos for the last 2 months, we've been talking about this. There's been a massive wave of cyber attacks targeting schools around the world. These attacks range from credential stuffing attacks, defacement campaigns in Ukraine, denial of service attacks and ransom denial of service attacks in the United States. There was a business email compromise where an employee was actually convinced through a romance scam to alter business emails so that they could send school funding to her private account, which she could take, and it was a really bad situation. There's also been a wave of ransomware attacks. Cuba and a couple other groups been out there locking up schools, asking for a lot of money, and this is
Advice
mainly because
Society.
and this is because there's so many threat actors on the market right now. You know, at one point in time, these threat actors kind of had a little bit of honor where they wouldn't go after hospitals and they wouldn't go after schools. That's completely changed. You know, when you have multiple ransomware groups out there operating, slim pickings for them to target. So they're just going to go with whoever they want at the moment. So very sad situation with the schools. And moving over into elections. So these are two more FBI pins that have come out. First one was about the 2022 midterm, misinformation, information manipulation. I think we're all pretty much familiar with this, but the FBI and CIA are alerting about possible foreign actors using misinformation to manipulate voters. So these are some of the things that we've seen in prior elections and something that we'll definitely see in the midterm and also the future presidential election coming up. They're circulating and amplifying reports of real or alleged malicious cyber activity related to election infrastructure. So like right now, one of those stories would be more or less about how a lot of the Trump and Mike Liddell supporters are sending in requests to election offices to contest the election, right, from 2020. This is something that's been amplified by many accounts on social media, and it's become a huge concern for a majority of Americans. I mean, at least every night on the news, they're talking about our elections vulnerable. And also to create and disseminate false information narratives regarding voter suppression, ballot fraud, a number of other things that are basically designed to undermine the confidence election process. So right now we have the run up to the midterm elections in the United States. You have guys sitting in parking lots with massive guns claiming to protect the ballot, but that information is being used for multiple narratives across social media. So it's something definitely to be concerned about, how you get from your information, how you process it, and also how you regurgitate it. You know, I kind of grew up in a house where you didn't talk about politics, you didn't talk about religion. Unfortunately, we live in a world where everybody has to formulate an opinion and then they have to talk about it, which can cause some issues as far as information manipulation goes. To the other side of the upcoming midterm elections is that there's a number of election workers that have been targeted both with physical threats of intimidation and also malicious attacks. So a group, Trellix, has written about election workers in Arizona and Pennsylvania that were targeted in August and the run up to their election. These election workers were flooded with malicious emails. They had social engineer attempts as the lure, basically to try and get password theft and payload delivery. So, you know, things like Redline, Raccoon Stealer, that recovered. These are pieces of malware that are also used in like the Uber and Rockstar hack. But they're very easy to use. And the problem is that most election officials are not cybersecurity experts. They want to help people vote. They want to help get people the information they need to vote. So this is something that threat actors can use in their social engineering attacks to try and get them to click on links and open up documents. Here we go into another Lapsus arrest. So this is my favorite part of the show. We have another Lapsus member arrest. So before we had the kid who goes by the name White, aka Teapot. He was arrested in London for his activity with Lapsus and also the hack of Uber and Rockstar. Now we have another member of Lapsus arrested by the federal police in Brazil after they launched a number of hack and leak campaigns against the Brazilian Ministry of Health. To even go so much further, the group also defaced the Brazilian Ministry of Health, claiming they did the hack. So there's no question that they did it. They also allegedly hacked other organizations and also defaced those websites as well. And the arrest comes as part of an operation called Dark Cloud that's aimed at collecting information related to attacking against the Brazilian government. The one thing I want to say about this is that we've moved as a threat landscape into another world where 10 years ago, someone launching a DDoS attack was so bored, they normally launched against their own countries, and they did hack and leak campaigns, and they used their own backyard as their sandbox. I think those days are slowly coming to an end as people realize that if you hack your own country, you're definitely going to get arrested. If you hack other countries, you might not get arrested. And I've had this joke with a few people that, some people that launched DDoS attacks the last few years that got arrested for it. And it's like, man, aren't you upset that, had you launched these attacks a few years later, you probably would have got a call from the government saying, can you hit Russia again? But instead, they're sitting in jail and going through probation because they thought it'd be funny to DDoS their own country.
Good
live
trick.
And learn, right, Pascal?
Yeah.
This is an interesting string of raids and arrests here, and we've been talking about this for episodes now. I want to say probably since the beginning of the war. The Ukrainian police and the SSU have been literally arresting and kicking down doors across the country. They are not taking anything from it. Yeah. So the Ukrainian police in this situation arrested 4 threat actors and took down a bot farm containing over 50,000 bots. Now we're talking about bots in this situation. We're not talking about crypto mining. We're not talking about DDoS. We're talking about information bots. So people creating social media accounts used to spread disinformation, as they say, subversive activities. The interesting thing about this case is that the defendants were citizens. So operators from the Russian Federation paid local citizens to create these accounts, and they were registering about 3,000 accounts per week, as I said, that were used to put out misinformation, the exact same thing that the FBI is warning about happening in the coming days here in the US midterm election.
35,000 SIM cards.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one. I got too excited. Yeah, 35,000 SIM cards. That is an incredible amount.
Yeah, try to stay under the radar if you turn on 35,000 phones on the same location, same antenna. It's like, okay, let's go. No.
You're so right there too. I mean, imagine the operator just sitting there watching their antenna light up like a freaking Christmas tree. I think there's something wrong here.
Yeah,
and that was Ukraine.
That was actually the other bot farm. You remember last month we had the bot farm where there was thousands of phones, but all like in special battery compartments and all activated, like the Chinese click farms.
Well, you kind of have that
must be
situation
easy
in this
to detect. No, it cannot be that.
Yeah, but if you look next to this laptop in this image, you can see like 3 rows, probably at least a dozen devices there. So like, you got 36 devices in one house that light up one antenna. Yeah, I mean, I live in a pretty big apartment complex, but I think if I brought an extra 36 phones into this complex, the authorities might have to ask me what I'm doing. So the last arrest was from the Ukrainian police. This arrest is from the security services of Ukraine, so the federal side. They arrested a woman that was launching these attacks. She was actually an IT professional in Ukraine prior to the war. The Russian-Ukrainian war kicked off. She was pro-Russian, so of course, what do? You crime. So she ended up running a bot farm for pro-Russian propaganda. She was registering up to 100 accounts a day for subversive activities, and she also was being paid by the Russian Federation. It seems like almost every single arrest coming from the Ukraine government has complete attribution back to the Russian Federation paying them, which is pretty amazing. You stop and think about the things that we talked about earlier with Killnet, Xaknet, and people are launching DDoS for profit and who might be paying them. I mean, I can't connect the dot. Pascal and I can't connect the dot, but it seems like the Russian Federation likes to pay for cyber attacks at the moment. And last but not least, it's our favorite friend Pascal.
Yeah,
He's
Daniel
back in the
Kaye.
news. I was not expecting this. It came across Twitter yesterday, and
Well, we
I forget. I
we
think
were expecting him to be released out of jail, yeah, because he was coming near the end of his sentence. So we
yep.
knew that he was gonna be released, but we didn't know he's gonna get a free ticket to Georgia included with his release.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy because like the last few months we had talked about like it was about time for him to be released. Like, what's he going to come out? Was he going to do interviews? I mean, he's really known for launching these DDoS attacks, and then come to find out,
Right.
he was also known for running the Real Deal marketplaces. There's a very famous marketplace on the darknet. It's alleged that he was working with the Dark Overlord, who was a vendor on the Real Deal marketplace, and also he's
Probably
alleged that
probably he spit out the name the Dark Overlord. He looks like the
yeah,
kind
and
of guy who would turn on his.
as we were talking about during COVID, one of the Dark Overlord members was also arrested in the United Kingdom. So, did he say something in jail? Maybe. But either way, he was extradited, and he accepted the extradition in September 2022, where they flew him from Cyprus to the state of Georgia in the United States, where he will definitely go to prison for more crimes. It's got to be tough, as a criminal.
Yeah.
You get arrested, you pay your due to society, but you've only done that in your country that you're arrested
For
in, right? Like, if you
for
want to
the
leave,
charges that only so that was for DDoS that he was arrested and doing the charge. So now he's flying over to Georgia to face charges for underground illegal marketplaces, which is completely different thing. It's like okay.
I mean, at this point, I hate to say it, but the only thing that he has in his back pocket is maybe trying to work out a deal and
Mhm.
become an agent himself, because I mean, this is bad. I mean, I thought it was just DDoS as well, but then we started looking through the reports, and yeah, he's
Yeah.
definitely with the Real Deal marketplace. He was definitely working with the Dark Overlord, and not to mention he was laundering cryptocurrency through BitMixer, another service that was recently taken down by the feds. So I'm pretty sure they have all the dots connected at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, they're probably building his case while he was already in jail for the other crime he did. It's
If
it's
you can't
it,
do the
it's
time,
not
don't do the crime.
yeah, it's not the first one. Remember the other kid that also is being extradited now from.
Oh, there's so many of them. It's unbelievable at this point. The United States really wants to put a lot of people in jail for attacking them. And
Mhm.
I think if there's one lesson that cyber criminals were to learn from this, stop attacking the United States.
DDoS is a
Go pick a
crime.
new target. Allegedly, it's
If
a crime.
if you did it before 2022, if you did it
Yeah.
after February 24, 2022, the jury's out. But before
If you're a
February
Westerner, you can attack the East.
2024, there is no discussion. It's a crime.
It's what we talked about as the escalation of the threat landscape and the coming cyber war. And if you're on the West, you can attack the East. If you're on the East, you can attack the West. And
Yeah,
it seems like our governments are pretty fine with it at the moment.
yeah, but that might come back and bite you in the other side.
That's the exciting part about being in this industry right now.
Yeah,
Never a dull moment.
nope, never a dull moment.
Oh,
So with this, I think we are at the end
yes, we are.
of the show. So thank you very much, Daniel,
Thank you, Pascal, for having me.
and I will see you all next month, most probably. Have safe travels and see you next month.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.